Hey everyone, welcome to today's Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. My name is Nate Carter, and today we are finally into the meat of the book of Proverbs. We're past the introduction, and now we're into the part of the book that most people think of when they think of the Proverbs. So in Proverbs 10, we begin with these little couplets, these two little sayings that are often joined together. And as we read the book of Proverbs from now to the end of the book, I just want to give you two pieces of advice. First of all, there is so much in each chapter that it's hard to take it all in. That's okay. Allow the Holy Spirit to speak to you with one or maybe two proverbs that you're going to just remember throughout the day. Perhaps write them down on a little index cards or something and carry it around with you. Maybe memorize it and just allow the Lord to speak to you. Secondly, and probably even more importantly, is remember these are proverbs, not promises. Okay? I feel like I got this wrong for so many years. These are proverbs, not promises. We see an example of this in verse 3. The Lord will not let the godly go hungry, but he refuses to satisfy the craving of the wicked. Now we know that that's not always true. We know that there are godly people who are starving. We know that there are wicked people who have eaten to their full. But generally speaking, it's a good idea to follow the Lord, to be a godly person, and it's a bad idea to be a wicked person. Okay, generally that's true statement, but it's not a promise. It's not a promise that if you're godly, God's going to always make sure that your plate is full at every meal. Likewise, the next verse there: lazy people are soon poor, hard workers get rich. I'm sure we both know people who have worked very hard in their lives, who work 2 or 3 jobs, and yet they're just scraping by through no fault of their own. It's not a promise, but it's generally a good idea not to be lazy, but to work hard. See what I mean? So keep that in mind as you read the rest of this book. They're proverbs, not promises. Now, I want to just point out a couple of things that spoke to me in this chapter, beginning with verse 19. And these have to do with the mouth and with words. Verse 19, too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. Boy, I should have that one tattooed on my arm. I tend to be the kind of person that thinks things out through speaking them. And sometimes that can be hurtful. Sometimes that can get myself in trouble because I decided to run my mouth. I remember years ago, I've probably already shared this before, but it really sticks with me. I was at a men's retreat, and we spent one morning doing a silent retreat. And as we thought about what that morning was like, a couple of hours without speaking, I realized it's really hard to sin if you're keeping your mouth shut. You know, the mouth leads to all kinds of sinful things because of what we say. And so if we keep our mouth shut, we can often avoid sin and also just avoid getting ourselves into trouble. Verse 20, the words of the godly are like sterling silver. The heart of a fool is worthless. And likewise, verse 21, the words of the godly encourage many, but fools are destroyed by their lack of common sense. Who are you listening to? What voices are you surrounding yourself with? Satan wants to find ways of speaking to you to convince you of lies, to convince you to puff yourself up and be arrogant, to convince you that you deserve more than you have, to convince you whatever is not godly. There are voices all around us that are vying for our attention. I heard a statistic, I don't remember it exactly, but there is an extraordinary amount of just advertising that we receive every day just by what we see on our phones, on billboards, on our computers, because people have paid to put words in front of us. What voices are you listening to? Because a lot of those advertisements are preying upon lies or preying upon desires or preying upon things that are not godly within us. So we need to put ourselves in the presence of godly words. Now, sometimes that's a person. Who are you listening to that speaks just godly counsel to you? Maybe it's a podcast. Maybe it's a devotional Bible that you read or a devotional. Maybe it's just a good friend that you know will speak good counsel to you. But also challenge the words that you hear from other sources. Don't just accept things that you hear as truth, but rather test them to see if they're true. I think with what we're learning here today is to challenge our own words and to challenge the words that we're hearing. With that in mind, read the rest of Proverbs 10 and see what the Lord's speaking to you today. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time on the Cornerstone Connection.